Welcome to our comprehensive video on top news timing, which should tell you everything you need to know about properly timing to the top news. We say top news timing, but really the radio term is back timing. And what back timing means is you do some little math with time to try to figure out how to get the time filled to an exact point in time so that whatever you have planned at that time will start exactly at that time. We have one time around the clock that this happens, and that is with our top of the hour news, which has to start at exactly 55. So, what we need to do is figure out how much time we need to fill to get there. So the 45 stop set has some talking, and when you do live talking, that messes up your timing. So you can see that the program thought that this song would start at 48:37, but we had done some talking in the hour, and it's now 48:55 with this song having 1 minute left. So as you can tell, by the time the song plays, it won't be 48 anymore. So the programming is wrong. So the first thing we have to do is figure out what time the current song that is playing will end, and that way we know what time the next thing will happen. So we must add 106, which is the time left in the song, to 48:55. We ignore the hour because that's not going to change. And that will give us what time this song will end. From there, you can see on the clock that we always need to add a sweeper. So we then add in the sweeper to our time, and that gives us the total time that everything that needs to play will finish airing. From that, we will either add one more song because we have time for it, or we will go ahead and subtract from the time that the news is supposed to start and figure out how much time we need left to fill. If we add one more song, we'll add the song, then subtract that from the total time. So either way, we're going to end up subtracting from the total time and find out how much time to fill in. Here's Ms. Tharp explaining.
I usually either wait for a kind of an even time, either on the remaining time or up on the clock, just to make it easier to add. So I'm going to wait till it turns to 8:48 and 8:48 and 0 seconds. So I'm just going to write down 48:00, and then as soon as that gets there, there's 2:10 left in the song. So I'm adding those together to find out what time it will end. And that ends at 50 minutes and 10 seconds. We always have to add in the jingle, no matter if it's down further on the list or not, but we always add in the jingle. I usually do that next just to be safe. So it'll be 50 minutes and 16 seconds when the sweeper is over. Okay. Then from there, I can either decide to try to play this song or figure out how much longer until we need to start it. I'm going to go ahead, usually when it's over 50, I go ahead and figure out how much longer until time for the news to start. News starts at 55 minutes and 0 seconds. What I usually write down is 54:60, because 54 minutes and 60 seconds is the same as 55 minutes. And it helps me be able to subtract better. So to find out the difference between when 50:16 to 55 minutes is, I just have to subtract. Okay, and if I'm going to do my so 4 minutes and 44 seconds is what I have left. Okay, so then I can go over here. Let me go to this part. Okay, to get to the music category, we have to press 101 and then a /space. And then we want to put in the time we want to look for. So this one's 4:44. And all the songs will come up. So then I'm looking to see when they played last. And I usually try to pick one that hasn't played in a while. So I'm just going to pick that one. And I'm going to put it under the sweeper because that's the last thing I timed in. Okay. Then I'm going to delete everything underneath that because we decided we weren't going to play those. And then to set it up correctly, I need to follow the wheel, and I need to take out the liner because we're not going to do that anymore. We are going to do the PSA after the news, and we are going to do the legal ID, so I'll leave those two in. Okay, and then I've got to go back over here and find the beds for the news. So I'm putting bed back in, and then it's the 55 news bed first, and then the exit bed right after.
Okay, and so that should pretty much sum up what you need to do. Basic steps again. First, figure out what time the song is playing will end, and as Ms. Tharp demonstrated, you'll need to catch that time. So it's good to find a nice even time to add to. Go ahead and write that number down, and when the other number reaches that time, then match them and add them together. After that, you always need to add the sweeper, because as you can see on the formatted clock, the sweeper has to play. Then, do you add another song or not? The question is, did you reach 50 in your math or not? We'll talk a little bit more about that later, but if you did reach 50, you stop adding music and you go ahead and subtract. If you didn't, you add one more song, then subtract that total. You subtract the total from 5460. It's important that you do that, not from 5500, because in math, you guys are used to borrowing, and then you'll make the 0 a 9, and then the last 0 a 10, when actually the 0 should be a 60, because in math, in time, we have 60 seconds in a minute, not 99 or 100. After that is when you find the song, you insert the song, always insert it behind the sweeper, because the sweeper will allow you to change the sound. So if it didn't match a previous song, you don't want it next to that song. You want it next to a sweeper so you can change the sound. And then you delete all the songs you didn't add in. And you saw that she didn't add the Heard It in a Love Song, the very next song in. So she would delete that plus the other songs. And she'd have her news song in. And then she would delete the station liner because that's not on the clock. And she would put in the national news beds, leave the PSA because that is on the clock, and the legal ID. Okay, so let's look a little more in depth on why you would or would not stop at 50. Okay, so here we have our current time is 47:05. Time left in the song is 2:27. We're adding those together. And we get 32, 49:32. We add in the 6-second jingle, and that gives us 49:38. If we were to go ahead and subtract from 54:60, that would lead us to some hard math, because then we got to borrow right here and figure that out, and we really don't want our math to be that difficult when we're in a time crunch. So that's one reason you want to go ahead and add another song if you aren't yet to 50. Another reason is once you figure out that math, we have 5:22. How many 5-minute 22 songs do you think we have? Probably not that many. So if we instead added yesterday's song, which is the next song, then we end up with 51:82. Oh, here's another time adding math problem. There aren't 82 seconds in a minute. If you convert that, you end up with 52:22. Subtract that from 54:60, and you have 2:38. Much more likely to find a song that's 2 minutes 38 seconds than 5 minutes 22 seconds. If you went ahead and subtracted, then you would get to a point where you're like, oh no, no 5-minute 22-second song. And then you'd have to subtract yesterday's songs, which is 244 from this, and you end up with more hard maths. So it's better to go ahead and follow the rule of 50. That way you don't have to subtract twice if you subtracted too early. Let's look at the other scenario. We have 48:08 here, current time, plus time left in the song is 4:14. We get 52:22. Interesting, same number as over here. Okay, what if we decided to go ahead and add in the next song? We just ignored the 50 rule. We'll add in that 3:05 song after we add in the jingle. Okay, then we end up with 55:33. Well, news is supposed to start at 55:00, so we already went over our time and we're starting news late. So that's one of the problems with waiting. That's why after you pass 50, go ahead and subtract from 54:60. And then we end up with 2:32 is the song that we need to fill. Since we didn't add day after day, we would delete that song, add our 2:32 song after the sweeper, delete Some Kind of Wonderful, Mr. Guy, delete the time update, the station liner, put in the news beds right there, play the PAUT and the legal ID. Let's talk more about converting time now. In this scenario, you know we added 47:05 to 2:27, got 49:32, added the 6-second sweeper, got 49:38. We decided, hey, we aren't yet to 50. We want to avoid that hard math and the 5-minute song. So let's go ahead and add that next song, 2:44. Well, that gives us 51 minutes and 66 seconds. A minute is longer than 66 seconds. So here's how you convert the time. Subtract 60 seconds, which is the minute, carry that minute over to the minutes column, and leave whatever's left. So if you subtract 60 from 66, you get 6 seconds over here and a minute over here. So it ends up being 52:06. Okay. Then subtract that from 54:60, and you find out your song should be 2:54. That's the song that you will put in after the sweeper. Since you used yesterday's songs, you'll leave that song in, and then you'll delete Tell Me Something Good, Good Times, Time Update, Station Liner, put in your beds, and you're ready to go. Check out this scenario. We got 47:05 plus 125, that equals 48:30. Add in our sweeper, got 48:35. Of course, we aren't yet to 50. We're going to avoid that hard math and the 6-minute song. So we're going to add 2:47, which actually we should have added 3:13. Always add the next song in line. But if we added the 2:47 song, that would get us to 50:72. That ends up being 72 seconds, and 72 seconds is a minute 12 seconds. If you subtract 60 from the 72, then you end up with 12, and you carry that 60, that minute you converted, over to 51, and so you have 51:12. And so that's how you convert with math and time. Then subtract that, and the song we would put in would be 3:48. So let's forgive our error. If we added in 2:47, then we need to delete the 3:13 song, leave the sweeper, leave the Love Roller Coaster song, insert our 3:48 song right here, delete Boogie Oogie Oogie, and the time update, and the station liner, and put in our news beds, have the PAUT, the legal ID, and we're done. Some tricky spots to look out for. Determining if you need to add another song. A lot of students, out of habit, they just continue adding, and then they end up with something like 56, and they're like, oh no, now I need to subtract. Don't add after you pass 50, and you'll save yourself so much trouble. Continue to add until you pass 50, and you'll save yourself some subtracting trouble. Math going above 60 seconds. Just always remember to subtract 60 seconds and carry that minute over to the next column, and then leave whatever seconds were left in that column, and you have the right time. When you started to add your math too late, that's a bad thing. Always add right after the 45 stop set, or you may end up finding that the song that's currently playing won't end until after news was supposed to start. And then subtracting from 55:00. Make it a habit. Always write down 54:60, because if you try to subtract from 55:00, you may mess yourself up by turning this 0 into a 9 and this 0 into a 10, when this 0 should actually be a 6. Now, go ahead and try it yourself.